At 5:12 a.m., the rain came down in a freezing diagonal that found every opening in Maya Nguyen's coat, stitched itself into the collar of her scrub top, and ran cold fingers down her spine before she had both feet on Harbor Hill pavement. The night bus hissed behind her, doors folding shut with a tired hydraulic groan, then pulled away toward the lower blocks, where rent signs peeled in long curls from brick walls. She stood for a beat under the failing bus stop light, hand wrapped around the strap of her canvas bag, knuckles split where wet skin had cracked against a steel laundry cart 2 hours earlier. Her fingers had stiffened into a claw around routine. Clock out, collect paycheck stub, check account, breathe, keep moving. She moved. The hill climbed toward old money and private security, toward roads that got salted before sunrise, while her street still held black ice until noon. Maya's shoes were damp through the soles, each step pressing a shallow ache up into her ankles. Her stomach felt hollow and sour, the consequence of another shift fed by vending machine coffee and half a granola bar she had found in her locker. 12 hours in hospital laundry had left heat rash marks at the inside of her elbows and detergent smell baked into her skin. Yet the rain had already thinned it out, replacing chemical clean with wet concrete and diesel exhaust. She kept one hand in her pocket around her phone, not for comfort, for control. Keys, phone, interview printout. She ran the inventory twice, then once more. A pharmacy sign flickered blue on the corner and caught the rain in broken neon. Maya paused under a narrow awning to check her banking app again, even though she already knew the number and could have recited it in her sleep. $38.14. Her thumb hovered over the cracked edge of the screen. $38.14 with rent 9 days late. Electric notice marked final in red. And her brother's school transport bill folded in her bag like an accusation. She had paid for his winter shoes and told him she would be late this week because overtime opened up. He had accepted that with a solemn nod of a 14-year-old pretending he did not notice how often she skipped dinner. Evidence of failure gathered his paper. 3 overdue notices, 1 interview confirmation, a bus transfer stamped at 4:41 a.m. She pulled the confirmation from her folder to keep it dry under the awning light. Valenti Residence, 18 Crowthorne Lane. Service entrance interview, 6 a.m., housekeeping staff requisition. Formal attire preferred. Government ID required. She had ironed her one black blouse on a towel over her kitchen counter, then pulled the scrub jacket back over it when the temperature dropped below freezing overnight. The blouse hem still held crease lines where old stitches had been mended by hand. She imagined the house manager's eyes moving over those stitches, calculating what kind of woman patched cuffs instead of replacing them. Then she folded the page carefully and slid it back into plastic. No wrinkles, no smudges, no reason to turn her away before she opened her mouth. By the time she reached the first rise of Harbor Hill, rain had turned fine and mean, no longer loud enough to feel dramatic, just persistent enough to seep. The city was waking in gradients. Delivery vans climbed toward private kitchens. Dog walkers in expensive rain shells moved through misted light, with earbuds in and shoulders relaxed, as if morning belonged to them by contract. Maya crossed from cracked municipal sidewalk to stone pavers maintained by neighborhood association dues higher than her monthly grocery budget. Even the storm drains looked polished. Through a hedge opening, she saw a row of townhouses with warm amber windows and potted evergreens wrapped in white lights that had never been taken down after holidays. Her apartment windows had painter's tape where the seals failed. Her wrist throbbed. She flexed it and felt the deep pull along old scar tissue, a map of injuries she had spent years reducing to private facts. Not now, she told herself. She adjusted her bag and walked faster, breath turning thin in the cold. She had practiced interview lines during the bus ride, lips barely moving over engine noise. Yes, I have 5 years of cleaning experience in clinical environments. Yes, I understand confidentiality and handling protocols. Yes, I can follow household hierarchy. No, I have no criminal record. No, I do not have scheduling restrictions except Tuesdays after 3 p.m. for family obligations. She kept her voice level in rehearsal, neither apologetic nor defensive. She would not sound desperate even if desperation was the only reason she stood on this hill before dawn in wet shoes. At 5:26, her phone vibrated once in her pocket. Unknown number. Her throat tightened before she could stop it. The response old enough to feel automatic. She did not answer. The vibration ceased, returned with a voicemail icon, then sat on the lock screen like a live wire. She kept walking and counted her breaths to 8, then 8 again. The same method she used in linen tunnels when conveyor noise made panic too easy. By the second week of January, she had learned that fear liked open space. If she gave it one thought, it took 10. She put her attention on street numbers instead. Black iron plaques mounted on stone pillars and the rhythm of her steps against the uphill grade. Left, right, left. Keep moving. The Valenti address did not announce itself with a sign. It did not need to. The estate wall rose out of rain like cut bone. Pale stone fitted so tightly no mortar lines showed, topped with ironwork that curved inward in elegant points. Security cameras sat in smoked domes at regular intervals, unobtrusive and unmistakable. Beyond the wall, upper windows glowed gold through weather, too high and too clean to reflect the road. Maya stopped across from the gate and looked back down the hill. From here, the bus shelter was a dim rectangle beside a liquor store security grate. Plastic panels streaked and yellowed, an entirely different city in a straight line of sight. Her coat sleeves dripped onto her cuffs. Somewhere inside the estate, she could hear the muted hum of generators or climate control, steady and expensive. She checked the time. 5:34. Early enough to stand outside and regulate her breathing before protocol began. Maya stepped under the narrow stone overhang by the service intercom and set her bag on a dry corner of ledge. She opened it with careful hands, arranging documents into the order she wanted to present. ID first, resume second, confirmation letter third, references clipped and dated. The pages smelled faintly of toner and the lavender sachet she kept in her drawer to make old paper seem less tired. Her resume looked clean at a glance and precarious on raid. Patched together from hospital laundry, 2 years of hotel housekeeping and private apartment cleaning she had done in cash after Victor left, and creditors started calling every evening at 6. She had omitted him from emergency contact and replaced that line with her brother's school office. She had omitted every story and kept facts only. Rain tapped the overhang in a steady metronome while she rehearsed her posture. Shoulders down, chin level, speak once, listen twice. In the reflective black glass beside the intercom, she saw a woman with blunt-cut bangs darkened by weather. Skin gone pale with fatigue, mouth set a little too hard for her age. 27 felt older when she stood still. She pressed her thumb against her split knuckle and winced as new sting cut through the numbness. Her body had a running ledger. Lower back strain from lifting damp linens, a fading yellow mark high on her forearm from an old doorframe impact. Hunger cramping low and rhythmic because she had chosen bus fare over breakfast. Fatigue made every sensation loud and every decision expensive. At 5:41, another phone buzz. This time it was Lynn from morning prep at the hospital. You make it? If they give you attitude, smile and bill them double in your head. Maya exhaled something that almost counted as a laugh and typed back with cold thumbs, "At gate," trying not to look like I slept in a laundry chute. Lynn replied instantly, "You're the only person I know who folds towels straighter than policy." They'd be lucky. Maya stared at the screen a moment longer than necessary. Small mercies mattered more when sleep did not. She slipped the phone away and let the words settle where panic usually sat. The hill quieted as Dawn considered braking, but hadn't committed. A black sedan climbed past and continued toward larger estates. Somewhere behind the wall, a dog barked once, then stopped on command she couldn't hear. Maya looked at the intercom button and did not press it yet. She let herself think of home for 15 seconds only. No more. Her brother asleep with textbook pages splayed across his chest. The space heater clicking off and on because the thermostat in their building lied by 5 degrees, the envelope of cash under the cereal box that no longer held enough for next month. This interview was not ambition. It was structural survival, a stable salary, maybe benefits, maybe on-site meals if rumors were true. If she got this, she could stop calculating bus transfers against produce prices. She could replace the broken lock on their apartment door before spring. At 5:46, she pressed the intercom. A soft click answered, followed by a man's voice, precise and neutral. "Service entrance. State your name and appointment." "Maya Nguyen. 6 o'clock housekeeping interview." A pause, keys tapping faintly through static. Hold. She stood in the rain-silver dark with her documents clutched close, heartbeat knocking hard enough to feel in her throat. She was exhausted, soaked, and one bad decision away from collapse. But she was here on time with evidence of competence in a folder that had survived worse weather than this. The gate mechanism engaged with a low hydraulic rumble, metal shifting against metal, and the opening it made looked less like welcome than a test. Maya stepped through the widening gap with her folder pressed flat against her chest, and the gate closed behind her with a final metallic seal that made the hill outside feel abruptly theoretical, as if poverty and bus schedules and peeling notices belonged to a different map. The service lane curved through trimmed hedges glazed with rain, then opened onto a rear motor court lit by recessed ground lamps. Even in pre-dawn gray, the estate looked engineered to erase uncertainty. Polished stone that reflected light instead of absorbing it. Drainage grates without a leaf out of place. Black cars lined in exact intervals beneath a glass canopy. Her wet shoes squeaked once on the pavers. She kept walking as if she had the right to leave a mark. A guard in a tailored charcoal coat met her halfway across the court, earpiece wire disappearing neatly into his collar. "ID," he said, palm out, not unkind, not warm. She handed over her card and watched his eyes track from the photo to her face and back again. Rain dotted his sleeve and disappeared into fabric that probably cost more than 2 months of her rent. He scanned the card, returned it without comment, then gestured toward a recessed side entrance trimmed in brushed steel. "Service intake, straight ahead. Don't stop in the corridor." The intake lobby was all muted stone and white light. Warmer than outside, but cooler than human comfort, the kind of temperature set for preservation. A wall clock read 5:49. A long console held leather-bound binders and a silver tray of key cards, arranged by color. Maya hovered just inside the mat line and wiped her palms discreetly on her coat lining. 2 drivers in pressed black uniforms crossed behind her, carrying garment bags. A maid in a stiff white apron checked a clipboard and glanced once at Maya's damp cuffs, with a look that carried no cruelty, only hierarchy. "Applicant?" a woman asked from the far side of the desk. Maya turned. The senior house manager stood with a tablet in one hand and a pair of reading glasses low on her nose. Silver hair wound into a flawless knot that had not shifted in the weather. Her suit was deep navy, her posture military straight, her expression as clean as the marble floor. "Yes, ma'am." "Maya Nguyen." 6 o'clock. The manager held out 2 fingers without lifting her gaze. Resume. Maya passed over the folder. The woman did not sit, did not invite Maya to sit. Simply opened the plastic sleeve and scanned each page in precise downward movements. She paused at the hospital laundry line. Paused again at the hotel housekeeping line. Her mouth tightened at the dates where Maya had stacked 2 part-time roles in the same year. "This formatting is inconsistent," she said, tapping the page. "You change fonts." "I updated one section at the public library printer. The system..." The sound cut across her explanation like a ruler edge. She flipped to references, held the page up to the light as if searching for altered ink, then looked over her glasses. "You understand, you are being considered for a private household, not a motel floor assignment." Maya felt heat rise under rain-cold skin. "Yes, ma'am?" "Protocol governs every movement in this house. Service corridors, inventory logs, key access, guest confidentiality, family privacy. Nothing is casual." The manager set the papers down with exact alignment. "The people who live here can bury an employee in legal fees for a single act of theft or gossip. Do you understand that level of exposure?" One of the drivers slowed near the doorway at the word theft, then continued on. The maid with the clipboard kept her eyes down, but shifted her weight, listening. Maya kept her voice level. "I understand confidentiality and chain of custody procedures from hospital work. I have never been charged with theft." The manager's gaze sharpened, appraising the sentence instead of the speaker. "Charged and compliant are not identical. Are you trainable, Miss Nguyen?" The question landed harder than the accusation. Trainable. As if hunger could be filed into obedience. Maya tightened her grip on the strap of her bag until her split knuckles stung, and she gave the only answer that preserved dignity and possibility in the same breath. "I follow systems exactly. If there's a standard, I keep it." For the first time, the manager's expression shifted by a degree that might have been acceptance. "We'll see." She tapped her tablet, then handed Maya a temporary badge on a gray lanyard. "Clip this where it's visible. Phone stays on silent and in your locker unless authorized. You do not enter private floors. You do not address principals unless spoken to. You call me Mrs. Ashford. If anyone asks, you are trial staff." "Yes, Mrs. Ashford." Mrs. Ashford glanced toward a narrow hall and snapped her fingers once. "Rosa, intake orientation." A younger housemaid appeared almost immediately, maybe 22, with dark curls pinned under a net and sleeves rolled to practical height. "This way," she said softly, already turning. Her accent bent warm around the words, a small human note in a room built for control. Maya followed her through a badge-controlled door into the service spine of the estate, where the grandeur of the front vanished into efficient geometry. Stainless counters, linen trolleys, labeled cupboards, polished tile that reflected fluorescent strips in hard lines. The air smelled of starch, lemon disinfectant, and expensive coffee drifting from somewhere she was not meant to enter. They passed a wall map marked by color zones and restricted access points. Rosa pointed as they walked. "Gray badge is lower service only. Blue is kitchen and laundry. Black is security. If your badge goes red at a door, you step back and call extension 04. "Got it," Maya said, committing each code to muscle memory. By 6 o'clock, the mansion's back corridors had filled with controlled movement. Pastry trays going one direction, pressed shirts the other, security staff rotating in pairs every 20 minutes with synchronized check-ins over low radios. The precision should have reassured her. Instead, it sharpened the contrast between her life and this one, until her throat felt lined with grit. At home, she taped drafts across a window seams to keep heat from leaking out. Here, even the utility sink fixtures had matching brass trim. Rosa stopped at a locker alcove and opened a narrow metal door. Inside sat folded trial uniforms wrapped in clear plastic. One pair of gloves, one inventory scanner, one laminated emergency card. You can change after paperwork. There's tea in the staff pantry if you need warmth. Don't take food without marking the sheet. They count everything. She lowered her voice. Mrs. Ashford starts hard with everyone. Don't take it personal. Maya managed a thin nod. I'm used to hard. Rosa gave a quick, unreadable look, then gestured back toward the corridor. You'll shadow me first shift. Bathroom rotation, then guest floor dusting prep. We move fast. They rounded a corner that opened briefly to the rear motor court through a bank of interior windows. A valet stood outside under the canopy, rain beating on his cap brim, flashlight in hand. He was checking under parked vehicles with methodical sweeps, but his left hand trembled enough that the light jittered across stone in erratic arcs. He crouched, rose, crouched again, then scanned the same sedan twice as if his memory had slipped between one breath and the next. Maya slowed a fraction. Is he okay? She asked. Rosa followed her gaze and kept walking without answering for 3 steps. He doesn't usually miss a pattern. The remark sat heavy. In places this controlled, pattern was religion. At the next junction, a dome security camera above the door emitted a tiny red pulse, then another, then went dark. Not standby dark, dead dark. The corridor light remained steady. Only the camera eye had gone blank, a blind spot punched into a building that seemed designed to prevent them. Rosa looked up sharply, pressed her radio key. Zone C2 visual lost, she said. Repeat, C2 visual lost. Static hissed, then a male voice answered, clipped and alert. Received. Technician en route. Hold current route and avoid east service until cleared. Rosa's mouth tightened. Copy. Maya felt the skin at the back of her neck prickle. Does that happen a lot? No. Rosa's answer came too fast. Then she corrected herself. Not during shift rotation. They diverted left through a narrower hallway lined with dry storage doors, each labeled in clean block lettering. Flour, linens, cleaning agents, seasonal. The sound profile changed as they moved deeper. Less foot traffic, more mechanical hum, an intermittent drip from somewhere in the walls. Maya kept pace, eyes scanning instinctively for exits, mirrors, red handles, anything that changed from one section to the next. Survival had trained her to read buildings and the way other people read weather. A steel service door at the end of the hall stood closed with no label. Only a keycard panel and a small wired glass inset fogged at the edges. As they approached, voices filtered through, muffled by metal. One voice belonged to a woman she didn't know, brisk, administrative. The other was male, smooth, patient, carrying the artificial politeness of someone who practiced charm as leverage. Maya's steps faltered. I'm expected, the man inside said. Private business regarding Maya Nguyen. The hallway seemed to contract around her name. Her pulse slammed hard once, then again, blood rushing so loudly she almost missed Rosa's intake of breath. Sir, you cannot remain in service access without prior clearance, the woman replied from behind the door. You need to wait at reception. A soft chuckle. Then call and tell them Victor Hale is here to settle a debt. Maya stopped moving. The folder slipped against her palm, plastic crackling in the quiet. Rain tapped faintly somewhere beyond the walls, distant and steady. While inside the estate, every practiced rhythm she had just memorized tilted off its axis. Rosa turned toward her, eyes wide now. reading Maya's face with sudden urgency she could not hide. "Maya," she whispered, voice barely there. "Who is Victor Hale?" Rosa's whisper landed in Maya's chest like ice water, and for a second she could not make language work. Her jaw locked, throat tightening around air that felt suddenly too thin. While behind the steel door, Victor's voice continued in that same polished cadence, each word measured, each pause deliberate. "He'll confirm it," he said to someone inside. "I did contract work here last year. I'm not a stranger to the property." Maya forced herself to answer without looking away from the wired glass. "He's my ex." Rosa's face changed from confusion to alarm so quickly it looked painful. "The one calling you?" Maya nodded once. Footsteps approached from the opposite corridor, brisk and authoritative. Mrs. Ashford appeared with a security guard at her shoulder, tablet still in her hand, expression stripped down to pure control. "Step back from the door," she said, not raising her voice. Rosa moved immediately. Maya took one step, then another, until her shoulders hit the wall. Mrs. Ashford tapped her badge to the panel, opened the door 6 inches, and angled her body to block the opening. Maya saw only a slice of the room beyond. Storage shelves, a duty desk, one startled admin assistant, and Victor Hale in a dark raincoat with a yellow contractor badge clipped to his lapel. Posture relaxed, like this was a meeting he had scheduled. His eyes found Maya over Mrs. Ashford's shoulder and lit with recognition that felt like a hand closing around the back of her neck. "There you are," he said, smiling. "I've been trying to reach you." Mrs. Ashford held the doorway. "You are unauthorized in this zone. You will return to reception immediately." Victor gave a mild, almost apologetic shrug. "I have legal business with Miss Nguyen. Debt enforcement, private matter." He reached into an inside pocket and produced folded papers in a plastic sleeve. "I'm sure your legal office understands cooperation." By 6:07 a.m., the service corridor that had run like machinery minutes earlier had slowed into listening silence. 2 kitchen porters paused with produce crates. A maid carrying pressed table linen stopped near the corner. The junior guard with Mrs. Ashford shifted position, hand near his radio, gaze flicking between the papers and Maya. Mrs. Ashford did not touch the documents. "Present any claim through counsel, not through a service corridor." Victor's smile never moved, but his jaw tightened once. "Maya," he said, voice turning intimate in a way that made her skin prickle. "Tell them you took cash and disappeared. Tell them I'm here to settle it quietly." Humiliation came first, hot and immediate. The words hung in the polished hall, and even without anyone speaking, Maya felt the weight of eyes. She could hear rain ticking against distant glass, a cartwheel squeaking somewhere behind her, the hard thud of her own pulse in her ears. Victor took one step forward into the doorway gap, as if Mrs. Ashford were a curtain he could push aside with charm. "She's unstable under pressure," he said to the guard, conversational now. "I have documentation. Missed payments, signed agreements, the whole file. You should check her bag before she leaves your property." Maya's hands went numb with anger. "You forged those." Victor turned his head toward her with theatrical patience. "You always get emotional instead of practical." "Mr. Hale," Mrs. Ashford said, each syllable clipped, "you are done speaking." The junior guard finally took the sleeve from Victor and scanned the top page, uncertainty crossing his face. The letterhead looked official. Stamps, signatures, reference numbers. Maya recognized none of it, but Victor had always understood presentation. Good paper, correct fonts, enough legal language to make honest people hesitate. That hesitation gave him room. He moved fast, stepping through the threshold before anyone closed space, and crossed the 3 meters to Maya, with predatory efficiency hidden under a pleasant expression. His fingers clamped around her wrist, exactly where old damage still flared in cold weather. Pain shot up her forearm, bright and immediate. Her folder slipped, papers fanning against tile. "There," he said softly, close enough that only she could hear the menace under the calm. "You're coming with me." Maya's body betrayed her for one lethal second. Throat closed, heart hammering, vision narrowing at the edges. Not from weakness, from conditioning. Years of learning what his grip meant when no one else was looking. She saw the junior guard start forward, then stall as Victor lifted the plastic sleeve with his free hand like a shield. "Authorized recovery," Victor snapped at the guard. "Read the order." It was enough to jam the corridor into indecision. Rosa gasped. Mrs. Ashford reached for her radio. Victor tightened his hold and tugged Maya toward the side hall. The emergency card in Maya's pocket dug into her hip through wet fabric, and one line from orientation flashed hard in her mind. In immediate threat, prioritized disruption, visibility, lockdown. She stopped resisting backward and shifted her weight forward instead. Victor adjusted automatically, bracing for a pull that never came. Maya used the opening. She twisted hard, ignoring the flare in her wrist, and drove her shoulder into the red fire suppression pull station mounted beside the linen bay. The lever snapped down with a metallic crack. Alarms screamed instantly. From ceiling vents, dense white suppression foam blasted into the corridor in violent bursts, swallowing sightlines in seconds. Staff shouted as the first wave hit tile and exploded outward, slick and blinding. Victor cursed and released her wrist to shield his face. Maya lunged through the foam, slammed both hands into a rolling linen cart, and drove it low and hard into his knees. The impact knocked him sideways into the wall. "Lockdown! East Service lockdown!" she shouted, voice raw but carrying. "Code Silver in Corridor C2. Rosa moved before anyone else, diving for the wall panel through waist-high foam and smashing the internal lockdown switch. Magnetic doors along the corridor thudded shut one after another. Red strips lit above each frame. Victor tried to push up, grabbing at Maya's coat. She kicked free, spotted the yellow badge still clipped to his lapel, and ripped it off with a tearing sound that took half the fabric with it. She stumbled back, clutching the badge and plastic document sleeve to her chest. Security radios exploded with overlapping transmissions. C2 alarm confirmed. Unscheduled suppression discharge. Lock east exits now. Medical team to service spine. The foam muffled footsteps until a deeper, sharper command cut through all of it from the far end of the hall. Clear a lane, now. Men in black security uniforms appeared through the white haze first. Then he did, moving with contained force that altered the entire corridor's center of gravity. Roman Valenti wore a dark suit without a tie, shirt collar open, rain still silvering one shoulder as if he had come in from an exterior check. He took in the scene in one sweep. Downed pull station, red lockdown lights, Victor half kneeling, Maya soaked in foam with her wrist already bruising, staff pressed to walls. His expression did not fracture. His voice did, just enough to expose the rage beneath discipline. "Seal east exits," he ordered. "Medical now. Validate every ID on this level. Nobody touches her statement without me." The security chief beside him, a broad-shouldered man Maya recognized from intake as Dario, repeated each command into his radio at sprint pace. Guards moved immediately. No hesitation, no consultation. One pinned Victor against the wall as he protested, still smiling for the room even with foam dripping from his hair. "This is a misunderstanding," Victor said loudly. I'm here under legal authority. Check the file. She owes me. Roman walked straight to Maya and stopped an arm's length away, placing his body between her and Victor with a precision that felt tactical, not theatrical. Up close, his eyes were dark, steady, assessing every visible injury in a single pass. "Can you stand?" he asked. Maya swallowed, nodding once. "Yes." "Did he touch you?" "He grabbed my wrist, tried to pull me out." Roman turned his head slightly toward Dario without looking away from her. Assault witnessed by staff. Preserve corridor footage before and after camera loss. Pull badge logs for this sector and reception. Victor barked a laugh from behind the guard's grip. "You don't get to invent charges because she panicked." Roman faced him then, and the silence that followed was heavier than the alarm had been. "You entered restricted service access with forged credentials and laid hands on my employee during active protocol challenge," he said, voice low and controlled. "You will speak through counsel." Victor's smile thinned. "She's not your employee." Roman's reply came flat and final. "She is under my roof." He looked back to Maya. "Give the badge and papers to Dario." Her fingers trembled as she passed over both items. Dario slid them into evidence envelopes produced from a waterproof kit, sealed each with timestamp labels, and read the numbers aloud for body cam audio. The procedural exactness steadied something in Maya that panic had nearly broken. This was not rumor, not private terror, not her word against his inside a locked apartment. It was logged, witnessed, recorded. Mrs. Ashford, foam up to her calves and hair finely loose at the temples, stepped in close enough for Maya to hear over the alarms. "You did the correct action sequence," she said quietly. "Do you understand me?" "Correct." The validation hit harder than she expected. Maya nodded, eyes stinging from suppressant and adrenaline. Roman lifted his chin toward the nearest guard. "Escort Ms. Nguyen to the family medical suite. Warm blankets, full exam. I want photos of wrist injury and statement taken when she says she's ready, not before." "I'm fine," Maya began automatically. His gaze settled on her bruising wrist, then returned to her face. "You're shaking." She looked down. He was right. Her hands would not stop. Roman's next words stayed in the same low register, meant for her alone despite the chaos around them. "You're safe in this corridor. You're safe on this property. Keep breathing." Behind him, Victor raised his voice again, trying to reclaim the room. "Maya, don't do this. You know how this ends. You think these people will keep you when they hear what you've done?" Maya lifted her head, foam dripping from her bangs, and met his eyes over Roman's shoulder. For the first time since hearing his name behind that steel door, she didn't step back. "What I did," she said, voice unsteady but clear, "was survive you." Dario signaled, and two guards turned Victor toward the secured holding corridor, his protests flattening into legal jargon as doors unlocked and relocked in sequence. The alarms downgraded from full scream to pulsing tone. Staff began moving again under direction, shaken but functional, restoring order around the edges of what had happened. Roman remained where he was until Victor disappeared from sight. Only then did he gesture for the medic team advancing with thermal packs and a portable scanner, as they wrapped Maya's wrist and guided her forward. She looked once at the corridor she had entered less than 20 minutes earlier, hoping for a paycheck, and found it transformed into a crime scene marked by foam, evidence tags, and red lockdown lights. Roman's final command followed her down the hall, precise enough to cut through every other sound. Dispatch a unit to her apartment and her brother's school route immediately. The guard at Maya's elbow did not grip her, but he stayed close enough that if her knees failed, she would not hit the floor. The medic team moved in a tight wedge around her through badge doors that unlocked in sequence, red strips fading to amber behind them as the lockdown protocol narrowed to the east wing. Foam clung to her coat sleeves in dissolving patches, cold at first and then itching as it dried. And every few steps her wrist throbbed with a hard pulse that matched the one still pounding in her throat. Slow breaths, the older medic said, guiding her into a private elevator with mirrored steel walls. In through your nose. Hold. Out. Maya stared at her own reflection and barely recognized it. Bangs plastered to her forehead, face drained of color except for 2 high spots on her cheeks. Gray trial badge hanging crooked from a lanyard streaked white. She tried to follow the breathing count and almost did until the elevator rose and her ears popped, reminding her how high above the service corridors she was now, how far from the part of the house where people like her were meant to stay. The doors opened onto quiet carpet and warm light. No carts, no radios squawking, no foot traffic at all except 2 black-suited guards posted outside a double door marked Medical Suite. One stepped aside immediately. The other spoke into his sleeve mic. Subject arrived. Conscious, ambulatory, right wrist injury, high stress response. Inside, the temperature shifted from institutional cool to controlled comfort. A gas fireplace glowed behind glass. Cabinets in pale wood lined one wall, and a treatment bed sat beneath a pendant lamp that cast clean white light over folded blankets, sterile packs, and a camera kit already arranged for documentation. The speed of it pressed on Maya more than the luxury did. Someone had given orders, and an entire system had turned in one direction, toward her safety. Code off for photographs, the younger medic said. I know it hurts. We'll support the arm. Maya let them help, jaw tight as wet fabric peeled from her wrist. The bruise was already surfacing in finger-width bands, old yellow traces underneath new red swelling where Victor had locked on. The older medic angled the wrist gently, took time-stamped photos against a measurement strip, then photographed her forearm, shoulder, and collarbone after asking permission each time. No one touched her without warning. No one rushed her statement. By 6:23 a.m., a tray arrived from the downstairs kitchen with ginger tea, broth, toast, and rice porridge, because she had mentioned nausea when they checked her vitals. Mrs. Ashford entered behind it, now in a fresh jacket, silver hair reset, as if chaos had never reached her level of protocol. She placed a sealed envelope on the side table and met Maya's eyes directly. Your temporary badge has been canceled and replaced, she said. You now have escorted clearance between medical, staff quarters, and administrative interview rooms until further notice. 2-person escort, no exceptions. If anyone challenges that, they answer to me. Maya wrapped both hands around the teacup just for the heat. My brother, already addressed. On mesmo hararaim. Ashford nodded toward the guard at the door. A protective unit is en route to your apartment, and another is assigned to your brother's school transit route. Mr. Valenti gave that order personally. The words should have relieved her. Instead, her throat closed again, this time with something dangerously close to tears. Relief had always come with a price in her old life. She waited for the hidden condition, the bill, the leverage. None came. Dario appeared a minute later, carrying a waterproof evidence case and a tablet. He stayed near the foot of the bed, posture respectful, voice crisp. Miss Nguyen, I need procedural consent for 2 actions. First, we've sealed the contractor badge and debt packet Mr. Hale presented. With your consent, we submit both for prints, ink age testing, and paper source analysis. Second, if you agree, we pulled transit footage from your regular night route to establish stalking pattern. Maya nodded. Yes, do all of it. Dario handed her a digital pad for signature. then rotated the tablet so she could see the chain of custody log. Her name. Victor's name. Timestamps to the second. Officer ID's envelope numbers. The mundane precision steadied her breathing more than the tea did. External contact outcomes, he continued. Reception confirms Mr. Hale entered through vendor lane using a cloned contractor credential tied to a maintenance company we terminated 6 months ago. We contacted the company owner. He verified the credential was not issued this year. Statement recorded. Maya swallowed broth that tasted like salt and warmth, and realized she was ravenous. The camera that died? Zone C2 camera feed was looped for 4 minutes. Dario's expression hardened by a degree. Not random failure. We've preserved the server logs. Franker, Ashford folded her hands behind her back. The valet you noticed was shaking because he found a magnetic device under a courier van, but didn't complete his report before the corridor alarm. He is giving a full statement now. Maya's skin prickled. A device? Tracker, likely, Dario said. No explosive components. We'll confirm in lab. Her spoon paused halfway to her mouth. Under a van, in your court? Dario met her gaze without softening the truth. Whoever planned this expected movement through service routes. Silence gathered for a beat. Firelight shifted across the ceiling. Outside the suite doors, a guard's radio murmured and clicked. Maya set the spoon down carefully. He said dead enforcement like he believed someone would listen. He counted on hesitation, Mrs. Ashford replied. He nearly got it. That is now documented as a training failure for one junior guard and a legal issue for him, not for you. The door opened again, and Roman stepped in without ceremony. Dark suit replaced by a black shirt with sleeves rolled once at the forearms. Rain gone, control restored. He looked first at the medic chart, then at her wrist, then at Dario. Report. Dario answered without preface. Hale detained in secure hold pending transfer to city custody. Forged documents seized. Cloned contractor credential confirmed. Camera loop and possible tracker under courier van under analysis. Initial witness statements taken from Ashford, Rosa, 2 kitchen staff, 1 porter, 1 junior guard. Apartment unit checked in 10 minutes ago. Perimeter clear. Building manager notified, no forced entry. School route unit established. Your instruction executed. Roman's jaw eased a fraction. He turned to Maya. Your brother's principal has been informed only that a safety escort was requested due to harassment. No details beyond necessity. Thank you, she said, and heard how small her voice sounded in the room. Roman pulled a chair closer, but did not sit until she nodded once. Statement can wait until your pulse settles. You decide sequence. Medical first, legal second. I can talk now. Can you, or do you think you should? His tone stayed even, not challenging, just exact. Maya looked at her trembling hand, and then at the signed evidence log. Give me 5 minutes, then I talk. Roman inclined his head once. 5. He stood to leave instructions at the door, and she caught a glimpse of the way he carried tension, not in frantic movement, but in stillness held too long. Shoulders squared as if bracing for impact that had already happened. Controlled rage, yes, but under it something older, heavier. When he returned, he remained by the fireplace, phone in hand, issuing quiet directives that reshaped the world outside this room in clipped lines. Legal, prepare an emergency protective filing in her name. Include workplace assault and fraudulent debt claim. House operations, freeze all vendor access pending revalidation. Security, audit every blind spot from 6 to 7 this morning. I want names, not excuses. Each command ended with confirmation. Each confirmation became action. Maya listened and felt, with a mix of gratitude and unease, what concentrated power sounded like when pointed at danger instead of at her. After the medic rewrapped her wrist and cleared her for interview, Dario began taking her formal statement on camera. He asked direct questions, no leading language, no skepticism folded into politeness. She answered in order. The voicemail pattern, the unknown number at 526, the voice behind the steel door, Victor's words, the grip, the forged packet, the fire suppression pull, the lockdown switch, the badge tear. When she stumbled, he repeated the question with the same neutral cadence until she found the exact phrase. Mrs. Ashford witnessed without interruption. Halfway through, a sharp triple beep cut through the suite speakers. One guard at the door touched his earpiece and stiffened. Dario's head lifted instantly. "Say it," Roman ordered. "Exterior breach attempt at West Delivery Gate." The guard said. Single vehicle tried to tail a produce truck through checkpoint. Stopped at barrier. Driver fled on foot, apprehended by perimeter team. No entry. Maya's cup rattled against its saucer before she could still it. Roman was already moving. "Lock this floor," he said to the door guard. "No one in or out without my code. Dario, stay with her. Ashford, keep witness continuity. I'll clear Westgate and return." He crossed to the coat stand, shrugged into a tailored jacket someone had brought in, and reached for a shoulder holster hanging beside it. The movement lifted his shirt at the side, just enough for Maya to see the pale, jagged line that ran along his right ribs, old and precise like a memory cut into skin. He noticed her noticing and paused for a beat, hand still on the holster strap. Then he pulled the jacket straight, closing the view, and left. The suite sealed around his absence. Magnetic locks clicked. The fireplace hummed softly. Dario set his tablet down and exhaled through his nose, the first crack in his professional shell since she had met him. "You didn't ask," he said after a moment. "But if you're wondering whether that scar came from business rivalry, it didn't." Maya held his gaze. Then from what? Dario looked toward the closed door, measuring his words. "Years ago, before my time in his house, his younger sister filed 3 reports against a man she lived with. Smiling type. Respectable in public. The reports stalled. She called for help one night. Response was late." He stopped, jaw tightening. Mr. Valenti got her out, but not before he took a knife, stopping the man from reaching her again. She died later at the hospital from injuries the system had already ignored. The room seemed to tilt slightly, not from shock at violence, but from the sudden rearrangement of motive. The rigid protocols, the intolerance for hesitation. The way Roman had asked, "Did he touch you?" before anything else. It was not performance. It was doctrine carved from grief. Dario continued, quieter now. He built this security structure after that, not because he trusts control for its own sake, because once he trusted institutions and buried family for it. Maya looked down at her bandaged wrist and understood why Roman had treated her testimony like evidence instead of panic, why he had moved units to her brother before legal optics, why his anger never spilled into spectacle. Beneath the tailored suit and room-silencing authority was loyalty sharpened into policy. Outside, footsteps accelerated in the corridor as the West Gate alert resolved. A minute later, the speaker clicked on again with a calmer tone. "Breach contained. Property secure." Dario resumed recording, and Maya gave the rest of her statement with a steadier voice than before. When Roman returned 20 minutes later, jacket darkened at the shoulder from mist and expression set hard, she was signing the final page. He waited until she capped the pen, then asked only one question. "Do you want to continue this process today, or pause and resume after rest?" Maya met his eyes. fear still present, but no longer in command. I continue. Roman nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement that felt less like pressure and more like respect for a decision earned the hard way. Then we continue under my protection and under the law. The words settled between them with more weight than the legal language they carried. And Maya felt the familiar split open inside her. Relief on one side, resistance on the other. Protection had always come to her in the shape of control, and control had always arrived with a bill. Roman stood a few feet away, broad shoulders still squared from command mode. Dark eyes fixed on her, as if waiting for the first sign she would fold in on herself. Instead, she held his gaze and said quietly, "You keep saying I'm safe here. I need to know what that costs." Nothing in his expression mocked the question. He crossed to the small table, set his phone down, and answered with the same precision he used for security orders. "It costs you nothing. It costs me resources." His voice lowered. "You are not a debt. You are not leverage. You are a witness and an employee who was assaulted on my property." The formal phrasing should have cooled the heat in her chest. It didn't. She noticed the damp edge of his cuff, where mist still clung to black fabric. The faint tension in his jaw he never displayed to staff. The scar, Dario had explained now, existing in her mind, beside every clipped order Roman gave. Fear and attraction moved through her in the same current, messy and unwelcome. She distrusted his world, the polished corridors and men who carried weapons under tailored jackets. She also trusted, against her habits, the way he had never once called her dramatic. Dario cleared his throat near the door, reading the room. "I'll file chain of custody and return with transfer schedule." Mrs. Ashford gathered the signed statement pages and gave Maya a brief nod, severe but almost maternal in its economy. When the door shut behind them, the suite quieted to fireplace hum and distant radio static. Maya flexed her bandaged wrist and winced. If this goes to transfer without the full record, he'll twist it. He always does. Roman's attention sharpened. What full record? She hesitated, then reached for her canvas bag where it sat by the chair, still damp at the seams. Her fingers found the torn lining pocket she had sewn shut twice after Victor stopped paying bills and started collecting information instead. She pulled out an old prepaid phone wrapped in a zip bag, screen scratched, battery held by tape. "I didn't trust my regular phone," she said. 3 weeks ago, he cornered me outside my building and bragged. I hit record inside my coat pocket. Her heartbeat kicked harder as she handed the device across. He said the debt papers were fake. Said forged numbers were cleaner than bruises because police understand paperwork better than fear. Roman took the phone carefully, as if it might break or explode, and looked back at her. "Why didn't you submit this earlier?" "Because I submitted things earlier once." The words came flat and tired. "Screenshots, voicemails. They told me to block him and stay with friends. He still found my roots." A shadow moved through his expression, not surprise, not disbelief, something darker that looked like recognition. He tapped his earpiece once. "Dario, return to medical suite now. Digital extraction priority." While they waited, Maya watched Roman pace exactly 3 steps to the window and back. Contained force in a narrow circuit. She realized she was tracking his movement the way frightened people tracked exits. And that realization frightened her almost as much as Victor did. Wanting safety from a powerful man felt like stepping onto thin ice after years of learning to test every surface. When Dario re-entered with a forensic tech in nitrile gloves, Maya did not surrender the phone immediately. "One condition," she said, surprising even herself with how steady she sounded. I attend the transfer. I hand over that recording in person. Roman turned to her at once. No. Her throat tightened, but she held her line. If I stay hidden, he still owns the story. I'm done being the woman people talk about in hallways while men decide what happened to her. It's an active risk environment. It's my evidence. The standoff lasted 3 breaths, then 4. Roman looked as if he wanted to refuse on principle, on protocol, on every scarred instinct he carried. Finally, he said, "You attend under full containment. 2 close guards, 1 step behind me, no deviation from marked lane. If I say move, you move. Do you understand me?" "Yes." He gave a short nod to Dario. "Extract audio, duplicate to legal and police, preserve original device untouched for court." Then back to Maya, voice quieter. "You changed the balance today in that corridor. You don't have to prove courage again." "I'm not proving courage," she said. "I'm proving truth." By 7:40 a.m., the rain had softened to a gray mist over Harbor Hill, and the estate's lower transfer bay smelled of wet concrete, diesel, and cold metal. Maya stood beneath industrial lights in a dry, borrowed coat from staff inventory, bandaged wrist tucked close to her body, while legal counsel set up at a folding table with 2 camera units and a magistrate liaison on secure video. Uniformed officers held the perimeter. Valenti Security held the inner ring. Procedure layered over tension like wire over glass. Victor was brought in through the opposite gate in restraints, hair combed back, expression composed enough for a campaign poster. He spotted Maya immediately and smiled with practiced tenderness that once would have made strangers think she was loved. "There you are," he said, voice carrying. "You always did panic when things got complicated." Maya felt the old physical response surge. Skin prickling, stomach dropping, pulse racing for escape routes. Then Roman stepped into her line of sight by half a pace, not touching her, simply occupying the space where Victor's gaze wanted to land. The move was subtle and absolute. Counsel began the record. Names, time, charges under preliminary review. The forensic tech connected the prepaid phone to a shielded laptop and generated a hash value aloud for the log. Dario read envelope numbers. An officer photographed each item. Forged contracts, cloned badge, access logs, now the audio file. Victor tipped his head toward the cameras with a small laugh. "You're really building theater around a breakup." Maya stepped around Roman's shoulder just enough to be seen. "Play it." The liaison nodded to the tech. The recording crackled, street noise under a low male voice. Victor's own cadence filled the bay, smug and intimate. "You think courts care about your bruises? Paper wins. I can write any number and make you come running. Debt keeps you close, sweetheart. You'll sign what I put in front of you." The last sentence ended in static. For the first time that morning, Victor's smile slipped. He turned toward his attorney with a quick, sharp motion that looked almost like panic before he forced the mask back into place. "That's edited," he said. "Out of context. She manipulates recordings." The forensic tech spoke without emotion. Metadata confirms continuous capture, no splicing detected. An officer from Fraud Division stepped forward with a printed packet. Ink age prelim matches recent fabrication on debt forms. Signature overlays indicate traced compositics. We're adding document fraud and unlawful restraint allegations to the referral. Victor's eyes cut back to Maya, and the softness vanished completely. "You think this protects you? You think he keeps strays once headlines fade?" He lunged then, not far because restraints and 2 officers checked him fast, but far enough that the motion ripped a shout through the bay. Maya froze for a fractured second as boots scraped concrete and hands closed in. Roman moved with brutal economy, one arm barring her behind him, while his other hand came up palm out toward officers, a command to hold fire and keep it legal. "No strikes," he ordered. "Keep him upright. Cameras on." Victor strained against the officers, face flushed, smiling again through clenched control. She belongs with me. She always comes back. Roman took one step forward, voice low and barely contained, every word landing like a locked door. She belongs to herself. She is under my protection and under the law. The bay went still, except for Victor's breathing and the click of camera autofocus. Roman did not raise his volume. He didn't need to. "To be clear," he continued, eyes fixed on Victor, "you will not contact her, approach her, message her, send anyone for her, or speak her name outside counsel. Violate that once and every legal mechanism available will close on you at once. Do you understand me?" Victor tried to answer with a sneer, but an officer cut in first. "Defendant will remain silent." The magistrate liaison's voice came through the speaker, crisp and formal. "Given corroborated assault, documented stalking pattern, verified forgery indicators, and attempted movement during secured transfer, remand is approved pending indictment review. No contact order effective immediately. Bail objection noted for prosecution." Paperwork moved fast after that. Signatures, wristband verification, evidence transfer receipts stamped in duplicate, external contacts resolved in sequence. The terminated contractor filed formal fraud complaint. Transit Authority confirmed a tracker recovered from Maya's regular bus seat frame matched adhesive from the van device. School security acknowledged protective routing request and closed the loop with Dario by encrypted email. Each thread that had started as a shiver of dread became a line item with an outcome. When officers finally turned Victor toward the transport vehicle, he twisted once more to look at Maya. The threat in his eyes had thinned into calculation, then into something closer to disbelief. She did not look away. She stood with her shoulders squared and let him see that the silence he used to trap her had ended in recorded evidence, witnesses, and steel doors closing in the right direction. The vehicle doors shut, locks engaged. Engines rolled out through the lower gate under escort. Only after the convoy disappeared did Maya realize her knees were shaking. Roman turned to her, scanning her face, her breathing, the hand she kept pressed to her ribs as if holding herself together by force. "It's done for today," he said. "For today," she echoed, because she understood enough about courts to know one hearing never erased history. His expression softened by a degree, the private version of him surfacing beneath command. "Then we take the next step tomorrow, and the next one after that. You won't take them alone." Maya looked past him to the wet concrete shining under morning light, then back to the man who frightened half the city and had just chosen restraint in front of every camera that mattered. Fear was still there, stubborn and old. So was trust, new and fragile and very real. She gave a small nod, more promise than surrender. "All right." Roman held her gaze another second, then signaled the escort team with 2 fingers. "Bring her upstairs. Hot meal, rest rotation, and no interruptions without my authorization." His voice lowered as he stepped aside for her to pass. "Stay behind me, Maya." This time, when she moved, it was not because someone dragged her. It was because she chose the direction herself. The private elevator rose in near silence, and Maya stood inside its mirrored walls between 2 guards, while Roman faced the doors with one hand braced lightly against the rail, body angled so he blocked any line toward her even now, after the convoy had left and the formal danger was in cuffs. Her bandaged wrist throbbed with each heartbeat. Her knees still shook in small, humiliating tremors she could not command away. When the doors opened onto the medical floor, he stepped out first, scanned the corridor, then turned back and gave a short nod that meant move. By 8:12 a.m., she sat at the same treatment table with a fresh cup of ginger tea and a legal pad in front of her, while Dario and a woman from Valenti Legal Counsel stood across from her with a live, secure line to the district prosecutor's office. Roman stayed by the window, phone dark in his hand, saying nothing unless asked. The prosecutor's voice came through crisp and procedural. Remand confirmed. Indictment filed before noon on stalking, assault, fraud, unlawful restraint, and credential misuse. No contact order active immediately across phone, digital, third party, workplace, and residential proximity. Emergency asset hold granted pending restitution hearing. The legal phrasing should have felt abstract, but each clause landed like a bolt sliding into place. Dario opened a hard evidence case and read updates one by one so the record stayed clean. The forged debt contracts had been logged as Exhibit A through F and transferred to fraud lab custody with receipt numbers. Victor's cloned contractor badge had lifted partial prints matching him, and 2 latent smears, too degraded for comparison, noted as non-probative. Corridor badge logs were extracted, signed, and sent to counsel and police. The C2 camera loop was confirmed as a 4-minute replay injection from an external device connected at a maintenance port. The device had been recovered from a backpack carried by the Westgate driver, now in police property. The magnetic tracker from the courier van and the second tracker found under the frame of Maya's usual bus seat used the same adhesive compound and serial batch family. Transit Authority filed a criminal complaint and suspended the relevant vehicle for forensic sweep. The unknown call to her phone at 5:26 had come from a spoofing application linked to Victor's prepaid account, with carrier logs preserved. The old prepaid phone Maya surrendered remained sealed as original evidence. 2 verified copies of the recording had been delivered to prosecution and defense discovery through counsel. Maya signed where she was told, initialed chain of custody confirmations, then paused when Dario slid one final page toward her. "Protective routing outcome," he said. "Your building manager accepted a formal notice and agreed to change main entry codes today under police recommendation. School administration confirmed escort protocol for Min through end of term, and the transfer request to Northgate District was approved pending your signature." She took the pen again. Her hand shook less this time. When counsel disconnected and Dario closed the case, Mrs. Ashford entered with Rosa behind her, both in immaculate uniforms that made the morning's chaos feel like a rumor from another building. Rosa stopped a step inside the doorway, fingers laced tight, eyes fixed on Maya's bandaged wrist. "May I speak?" she asked, voice low. Mrs. Ashford gave one precise nod and remained near the door. Rosa crossed closer. "In that hallway, when I asked who he was, I saw your face and understood enough to hit lockdown. But there is one thing I should have said sooner. Last year, during contractor turnover week, I saw him in service access with a borrowed badge arguing with a junior guard about restricted routes. I didn't know his name then, and he had a beard. But when he spoke behind that steel door this morning, I recognized the cadence and froze." She swallowed. "I filed a statement just now. I should have reported the first encounter months ago. I am sorry." Maya studied her for a long beat, reading fear, guilt, and the stubborn steadiness of someone who had acted when it mattered, even after freezing for 1 second too long. "You hit the panel," Maya said. "You closed the doors. That mattered." Rosa's eyes brightened with restrained relief. "I'll testify if needed." "You will," Mrs. Ashford said evenly. "And you will receive witness support through legal, not through corridor gossip." She shifted her attention to Maya. For completeness, the junior guard who hesitated has been suspended pending retraining review. The valet's shaking was fear after finding the first tracker and not fear of you. He has given a full written statement. His look in the motor court carried warning, not suspicion. That thread, too, clicked into place. At 11:40 a.m., Roman drove with Maya and the escort unit to her apartment building in a dark sedan that smelled faintly of leather and rain-damp wool. Harbor Hill's polished stone gave way to patched asphalt, dented mailboxes, and steam coughing from old street grates. Her building manager met them at the entrance in slippers and a cardigan, flustered and suddenly formal in front of suited security. He produced new lock receipts, apologized twice, and promised not to buzz in unknown visitors again. Maya accepted the paperwork without offering comfort. Upstairs, she packed inefficient triads, documents, medication, school binders, winter clothes, work shoes, photo envelope. Nothing sentimental except one chipped ceramic bowl her mother had used for rice. Min came home from the supervised school escort just after noon, backpack hanging off one shoulder, face going pale when he saw the guards before finding Maya in the kitchen. "Are we in trouble?" he asked. She knelt to his height despite the protest in her wrist. "No, we're changing where we live for a while. Safer place, better school route. You did nothing wrong." He looked past her at Roman standing in the doorway, then back at her. "Is he the scary guy from the news clips the guys at school whisper about?" Roman answered before Maya had to. "I'm the man paying for your lock change and your transfer bus, and you can call me Mr. Valenti." Min blinked and gave the smallest nod. "Okay, Mr. Valenti." The move took one trip with 2 vehicles because Valenti's staff had already staged empty bins and labels. By 2:30 p.m., Maya unlocked a compact staff cottage inside the estate grounds. Separate entrance, 2 bedrooms, clean kitchen, heating that answered instantly, and windows that sealed fully against wind. Mrs. Ashford walked her through employment documents at the dining table. Permanent senior housekeeping role, fixed salary deposited to an account only Maya controlled. Overtime rules in writing, independent housing license tied to employment, but with 90-day transition protection if she ever resigned. Counseling services confidential and prepaid. No hidden clauses. She read every line. Roman waited in the doorway, silent, while she circled one sentence and asked for clearer wording on schedule control for court dates and Min's school meetings. Counsel amended it on the spot. Lynn called just after 4 p.m., voice bursting through speakerphone with relief, so sharp it almost hurt. "You disappeared. I was ready to walk up Harbor Hill with a mop handle." Maya laughed for the first time all day, brief and unsteady. "I'm okay, better than okay. I'll send you the new address." "You better. Also, your supervisor approved your final hospital shift release after I told her you got a full-time post somewhere with actual heat and food." "Tell her thank you." "I told her she was losing her best linen wizard," Lynn said. "She said she already knew." By early evening, after Min had eaten 2 bowls of noodle soup and fallen asleep on the new couch with a textbook open on his chest, Maya stepped out onto the cottage patio. Estate lights glowed through mist. Security moved at a distance, visible but not intrusive. Roman stood near the path in a dark coat, hands in pockets, watching the tree line as if it might answer a question only he could hear. She walked to him and stopped an arm's length away. "Prosecutor's office called while you were with Min," he said. Victor's counsel moved for emergency disposition after full evidence review. In open court, with counsel present, he entered a final guilty plea on stalking, assault, fraud, unlawful restraint, and credential misuse, accepted a binding restitution judgment, and the court imposed immediate custodial sentencing. Permanent no contact is now part of final judgment. She let out a breath she had been rationing all day. So this is legally finished. It is. Both sides accepted the disposition on record. The case is closed. Silence settled. Not empty, just full of things neither of them rushed to name. Rain tapped softly on leaves. Somewhere near the main house, a gate motor hummed and shut. At dawn the next morning, light spread across the estate glass in pale bands, and Maya found Roman in the winter garden corridor where marble met warm wood and the city looked far away. He turned when she approached, eyes searching her face for strain before anything else. "I reviewed your contract revisions," he said. "They're final. Housing is yours under the terms you requested. Your brother's Northgate transfer activates Monday. Escort remains until you choose otherwise." Maya nodded. "I'm staying." He held her gaze, voice dropping to that low, steady register that had cut through alarms and courtroom noise alike. "You can leave this property any day you decide. No penalty, no pursuit. Do you understand me?" "I do." "If you stay," he continued, "no one puts hands on you again." The promise did not sound like possession. It sounded like policy, grief forged and carefully offered, with room left for her will inside it. Maya looked through the glass toward the service wing where she had arrived soaked and shaking with a plastic folder and $38. Then back at the man who had met her fear with procedures, witnesses, and restraint when vengeance would have been easier. "I stay," she said. Roman inclined his head once, the closest he came to visible relief, then stepped aside so they could walk the corridor together toward breakfast, toward contracts and school forms, and a life that was not simple, but was finally hers, documented, defended, and built on choices no one else could forge.